So this one is one that we've discussed at length in other videos, but we got to hit it again. Officers in MARSOC.
Okay. What about them?
People that want to be an officer in MARSOC. What do you think? What makes a good one? First off, how do you get there? Is quite difficult. I mean, when you go to TBS, I mean, you were up at Quantico for a little while. You taught those guys.
Yep.
You don't really get to pick your job. You get to pick your top three, and then you get thrown in thirds.
Top three, thirds, and it's based off of performance.
Yeah.
Max. There's
Right.
a whole algorithm that goes into it, but.
And then, so if you want to be the good thing is now, MARSOC has an officer MOS, so it's 0370. So any officer can take selection, just like any enlisted Marine can come and go to take selection. So then you're in the community forever.
Which is awesome.
Which is awesome. But your team time is
very limited.
Yeah.
Typically. I do know one that
got two.
Has been out with multiple teams, been an XO of that same company.
Yeah, but how many teams did he?
Two.
So that's the max. So like that's typically the max. Typically an officer is going to get one tour with the team, and then he's moving on. Even as a career, Raider officer. So that's like when people are talking about being an officer, you have to put yourself in check of like what I always ask, what is it that you imagine yourself doing?
Yeah.
Because if you imagine yourself going out on ops and actually doing the job, then being an officer is not what you want to do. And I'm not saying that they don't get to do that sometimes, but it's not their primary job.
No, they're there to conduct a different job within that job.
Yeah.
A different portion of it, just like someone on the team is like your Delta, your medic, your SARC.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they're doing the stuff that the team is doing, but they're actually tasked there to do a very specific thing.
Yeah.
And they are tasked to do a specific thing as well.
And then once you're done with your team time, you're gonna go be an assistant ops or XO, or you're gonna move on to something else. You're gonna go to the regiment. You're gonna go training. You're gonna go to the G7. You're gonna go something.
Yeah. I would like to see, and again, haven't been there in a while, but I still have communication with people and talk. Like, I would like to see, hopefully maybe they've filled up some ranks or something somewhere on the upper side and keep guys around longer in the teams. And I wish they would have done it in the very beginning. But the longer you keep them around the teams, there still has to be a progression somewhere. I understand that.
Yeah.
But if you keep them in the teams a little bit longer, they have that much more context of what the teams are about, of what the operational needs and how the job is actually operationally conducted from the men, because they've been with them, they've been on the team with them. And then they just, instead of escalating them so far up the political spectrum of it, I mean, essentially is delay the process a little bit, keep them in the teams a little bit longer, make them do at least a couple rotations, then make them do something else from a company capacity before they can move up. And so that way, once they get to a point where they're actually like, injecting policy or talking to other soft leaders,
they've experienced
the board,
it.
They can now come with background knowledge, information, and firsthand actions, and speak maybe a little more, eloquently about what's really happening.
I think this is where it gets that officers get a bad rep in the command is because of that exact thing. They don't have the experience. So, for instance, one of my officers, we would say like, hey, why are we doing this? Or we need to do this. Like, this is a problem. Like, we've just done this. It's like Groundhog's Day. Why aren't they listening? And he would be like, well, what's the problem, man? It's not that big of a deal. It's like, dude, this is your first, this is your first time. This is our 7th.
Yeah.
We've been dealing with the same bullshit for 7 rotations. And he's like, well, it's not a big deal. But then as soon as you get that team, that officer that's in the team the second, he's like, we just dealt with this last time. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
So it's like that perception of, You know, them having to be in it with the guys that have been doing it professionally for over a decade. Now their perception changes, and like you said, they've got that experience of, now I want to actually make things better. Because at the end of the day, officers make policy, enlisted enforce policy. You know,
and a lot of this is set up against them. Really, I mean,
it is.
It's not their fault that this is the structure of where it is. But if you go into it with the awareness and the understanding that this is how it is, maybe, you know, on your first time around, you can go into it kind of knowing that,
right,
and be a little more open, you know, to what's going to go on, so you can be the receiver of it, and, you know, as you get pushed through, maybe, you know, be a little more, you know, knowledgeable on how things really happen.
So what do you think? What's some good qualities that, like, if you were going in as an officer today, what are some qualities that they should have to be most effective on a team and in the command?
Be the best officer that they can. Now that sounds very like bland and
Well, break it down for me.
in very broad spectrum. But
Yeah.
to be quite honest, like, they're there to serve a job. They're there to do a certain task. Just as a breacher has a task, or the weapons guy, or the medic. Like, be the fucking best that you can be. Be there to assist your men, right? Be there to listen to them, receive what they're saying. So, because you're the one who's talking to hire. You're the one who's really projecting the men's message. And if they're the ones that
have been doing it way longer than you have.
Yeah. So use them to basically be armed with the ammo of maybe what you want to tell higher, and then use your knowledge and your expertise as being an officer and understanding the policy and understanding, you know, maybe some of the other backdoor stuff that's happening at that time, to be able how to project what the men are trying to say and trying to do, not your own objectives for yourself. So really just be the best officer that you can be, and then also listen to them, because like you said, they've been doing it for longer. It ain't your fault.
Yeah.
Put the ego down and take the rank off.
It's funny you say that, because a lot of officers will get very career orientated, and they'll really think about themselves and their career and what's best for them. And what's always best for them isn't necessarily always what's best for the men and the team.
Usually it's the direct opposite.
Yeah.
So don't get those two misconstrued. Understand and kind of hold yourself in the environment that you're in, and stop thinking about, you know, personal longevity or career longevity. Not to like negate your career, you know. But
yeah,
like,
of course.
Don't think so far in the future that you're not really concerned and fully wrapped up into what's happening right now, to ensure that your team, one, is able to do their job as best as humanly possible. They get out alive, and, you know, they're geared or armed with everything that you can give them and everything you can provide them, because you're the only guy in the team that has that job.
Because the flip side of that, and I'm a little jaded, but with officers, but the flip side of that is the officer worries about their own career, and then literally ruins, and has the ability to ruin the men's a guy on the team career.
And this isn't to talk all negatively against officers. It's not that whatsoever. It's just
they ask
with the questions being imposed.
Yeah.
And this goes across the line. Really, you could say any MOS.
That's true.
This isn't just, you know,
just the unit
being in the Raider community. I mean, like, this is any MOS across the board. You have to remember, you know, like, I wouldn't go into lead if you were in the outside world, you know, in the civilian sector. You know, you wouldn't jump into a company not having any knowledge or information about how the company operates. Well, people do it all the time, but I hope not.
Yeah, what their workflow is, what their operational status is.
And you just come in as a guy who has experience in managerial or supervisory roles and responsibilities.
Are told that they are.
Yeah, and then you just jump in and not listen to the people who are on the ground floor, you know, doing the work.
I think that's probably one of the biggest gripes that I have with the Marine Corps in the officer community is through OCS and TBS, they are literally told they're in charge, that they know better, that they have better leadership. So the ones that are not astute enough to realize that's kind of some bullshit, and they go in believing that, it like damn near destroys a team or platoon.
I've had officers, man, that were like just cooler than hell.
Yeah.
That I had an amazing relationship with. And it's not them dumbing themselves down to our level. It's us working collectively as a team or as a unit.
Well, it's just
cohesive
like,
and how it should
with
be.
any leader. With any leader, you approach a team, or you approach in any business or military or whatever. You approach them with identifying everyone's strengths and what they can bring to the table, and that's how a team, like, you apply everyone's strengths, and if you find someone that has a strength, you put them in that and you add fuel to it.
Yeah.
Right. That's what, as an officer, that's what you should be doing, is finding your people and inspiring them, motivating them to be the best version of themselves.
And making it very clear and concise what your objectives are there as well. Like, even though a team or a platoon or whatever your MOS is may have had 3 officers rotate through them, everyone's going to be different. So when the new guy steps in, you know, have a sit down with, you know, your higher echelon, you know, your team chief and whoever is your higher guys on that team, and, you know, do a little powwow maybe with them first and say, hey, this is who I am and this is what I'm about, you know, and talk to them like a man, and then that way you can start disseminating everything down, you know, to the team.
Yeah, if you walk in and don't do that and you're like, I'm the captain, you're just, it's not going to go well for you.
It's going to be a long year.
It's going to be a very, well, now it's like,
whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
that was like 3 years.
Yeah, like, work up, team time, post time, like, whatever. That section of time, it's going to be a long one. And it's going to be a fight, and who wants that? No matter what side of the coin you're on.
Nobody wants that.
No one wants that. It doesn't make for a very fun day to go to work.
No, it's exhausting. Yeah. So, don't be a douche.
Be a leader. Create a cohesive environment.
Yeah, be a leader. Don't be a douche.